I believe, with David Rodríguez. Yes. Who is a very accomplished player. He's won a special event last season in Mexico City. He's got top 4 at LAIC last season, top 16 at NAIC in 2018. He's won 4 special events. So a very, very accomplished player. Very experienced player as well, with results going all the way back to 2018. And using a team that we've seen, I think, once or twice so far already today. It's this very standard 6 Pokemon. It's been proven to be very, very strong. A lot of good results at major events so far. The standard Porygon 2, Ursaluna, Flamigo, Golden Go, Incineroar, and Amoonguss.
Yeah, and I think you can see from here, it's leaning towards that potential Trick Room setup, because we don't see any speed control here other than that. I think David probably wanting to go to the bulkier route of having a bulkier Pokemon such as the Ursaluna, and potentially properly EV the Amoonguss and Goldengo, coupled with the Intimidate from the Incineroar, in order to thrive under that Trick Room. And of course, as we all know, Porygon 2 holding that Eviolite will last around for quite some time, especially since it does have access to recover, as we see here. And it's also worth noting that this Porygon 2 has the ability of downloads. So depending on how Jeongso Lee EV'd his Pokemon, it's very possible that this Porygon 2 could get a special attack boost and not only be bulky on the field, but also be a thorn by dealing enough consistent damage. So
it'll be interesting to see. Oh, sorry. Be interesting to see as well. We saw the last time I saw this team on stream at the first match of today. We had a Life Orb Golden Go, whereas this one is leftovers, which makes you think maybe it's going to be slower, a bit bulkier, so maybe less dependent on that fast mode. Like you said, a bit more reliant on that Trick Room. Very interesting to see. But next, let's have a look at his opponent and their team. So for Jeongso Lee, we see again the Amoonguss and Incin on this side as well. Very common pairing, Amoonguss and Incineroar. And again, we see this pairing of Garchomp Ninetales that we've seen a few times so far today already. The first match that I cast so far today was Porygon 2, Ursaluna, that exact same 6. The second one was Garchomp Ninetales, and the third one is the 2 facing off against each other. But this Garchomp is not like other Garchomps. This one is loaded dice scale shot. So this is looking to get those big speed boosts with that loaded dice scale shot, guaranteed at least 4 hits if it connects. And with those speed boosts, it's going to start outspeeding pretty much everything. But that's not too much of a factor coming up against a Trick Room team.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. And it's also worth noting that on the side of Jeongso Lee, he also doesn't have Tailwind and instead opted for their own approach, which is bulk, I guess, from that Ninetales, having access to Aurora Veil, and the Incineroar's Intimidates, being able to, shuffle the game around and I think set up the board for a slow and steady victory through that Garchomp and the King Gambit. And, as we all see, Sneasler just throwing out those strong close combats and Dire Claws. And I think our game is ready, right?
Yeah. Let's jump into the game. I think as we get into it, I think one thing I want to highlight here is the Covert Cloak on Amoonguss on
definitely.
Team, which is a bit of a problem, I think, for David, because normally the way you'd want to get your Trick Room up with this kind of Porygon 2 Incineroar or Amoonguss core is you lead either Incineroar for Fake Out or Amoonguss for Rage Powder to keep the Porygon 2 safe as you set up. But this Amoonguss can't be faked out, can't be redirected, can't be spored. So it's a pretty safe spore into a Porygon 2 if that is the lead that Jeongso Lee goes for.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that on the side of David, he has no access to Taunt. So that Amoonguss would definitely have a field day once it hits the board. And right here, we see the Sneasler and the King Gambit coming out on the side of David. And on the side of Jeongso Lee, leading with their... is it backwards? Because the Porygon is on the other side. But nonetheless, we see the Porygon 2 and the Ursaluna being together on the field and against the faster Sneasler and King Gambit. So right here, as you did mention behind the scenes, there's no resistance to ground moves right now. So that Ursaluna could potentially deal some damage, but it is susceptible to a close combat if it does not Era.
Yeah, it's an interesting lead here. I think this lead from David was trying to predict the Amoongus and just get the Ursaluna with its Flame Orb online as quickly as possible, but Lee instead opting to not bring the Amoongus at all and opting just for a very offensive start. And we see probably a misinput, I would guess, from Lee there, who has gone for coaching and just a regular Terra Blast. I think, from what we saw earlier, he was looking to Terrastallize that turn and go for that +1 Terra Flying Terra Blast. Instead, a free Substitute and Trick Room for David. That's a very unfortunate turn for Lee, because now this Ursaluna is online, its Flame Orb is activated, it's got a Substitute up. This is going to be very, very difficult to take down.
Yeah, that's a big yikes as well, considering that on the side of Lee, he doesn't have any Pokemon that is immune to ground moves. So that Ursaluna can just throw out a Headlong Rush on any target and it will still hit them for very good damage, considering it just got burned from its own Flame Orb, activating its Guts ability. So we'll have to wait and see what Pokemon will be offered to it as a sacrifice. Except the Sneasler, of course, which will hang on from the Focus Sash, but it's basically a delete button at this point. But we see the Kingambit going for the Terra Flying, which should have happened last turn, happening now. So I guess keeping it safe from that Headlong Rush and going for that Sucker Punch to try and get rid of that Substitute.
Uses Sucker Punch to come out. It does break the Substitute. Kingambit very, very strong, even without the Black Glasses item. But we are going to see the Ice Beam come out into Sneasler here. This could be a double up into Sneasler. It's got no Protect. We do see the Facade as well into the Sneasler, taking that out. David just saying, okay, you could Terra Flying your Kingambit. I don't really want to bother with guessing games on that, saying, okay, it's much less likely that you're going to Terrastallize your Sneasler, so I'll just double down into that slot. And I think a problem now that Lee is going to face is a real lack of Protect on his team. We see the Kingambit with the Assault Vest item has already used its Terrastalization. It's now weak to Ice Beam, and it can get hit by that big Facade. And the remaining Pokemon, we have Incineroar, who doesn't have Protect, Amoongus, who doesn't have Protect, and then Garchomp and Ninetales, both not very strong under Trick Room. So this is now a very, very commanding position, I think, for David.
Yeah, you said it very well, considering that there's not much access to Protect. So an Ice Beam and Facade combo being thrown out would just be perfect for David. You know, you don't even have to really second guess yourself, since there is no Protects present on the field. So it's just merely a click and delete scenario. So we see here a switch out occurring for the Goldengo, probably wanting to speed up the game, since it's very likely there, as we saw, the Spore could indeed stall things out.
Amoongus does live the Facade, so that's built with some good bulk. And now the Ursaluna is potentially in range of a Sucker Punch, but this Goldengo is now starting to put on a lot of offensive pressure. So there's still the Terrastalization on Jeongso's side, so he could potentially Terrastalize this Goldengo to get out of the Dark Weakness from Kingambit. Or the other option he has is just to start setting up with nasty plots now. He's seen that... oh, sorry, wrong way around. David has the Goldengo. The overlay's a bit strange.
Yeah.
But David could set up with this Goldengo, stall out his own Trick Room, for example, and then just start clicking Make It Rain now that the Trick Room's down.
Yeah, that's the correct thing to do here. And because of that one turn that was burned from the Goldengo switching in, it does give you sort of a lifeline in trying to get out of that Trick Room. As we see here, the Amoongus does switch out, considering it doesn't have any real practical purpose, since you can't put the Goldengo to sleep, as well as that Ursaluna, which is already burned. So you might as well switch out for a better position, such as the one now. But it still begs the question of how do you answer these two attackers that are on the field right now, especially since that Goldengo is very fresh entering this board.
Okay, so we've just been updated by our behind-the-scenes team. There was a slight error on the graphics earlier. We had the teams the wrong way around when we introduced the players. So David is playing the Ninetales Garchomp team, and it is Jeongso who is on the Flamigo and Goldengo team here. So this is now the correct way around. We apologise, there was a lot of confusion. We were a bit confused as well, but it is Jeongso who's got the Goldengo Ursaluna on the field right now, and David who has got the Incineroar and Kingambit. But this Ursaluna probably not going to be in the field for a huge amount longer. Very low health now with that burn ticking away at its health bar.
Yeah, so apologies again to everyone. This trick room did not only switch the speed ties or the speed priorities, but it also switched the team sheets around. So yeah, confusion going everywhere. But nonetheless, we're still back at it in this game here as the Goldengo goes for the safe protect. Not wanting to get faked out since it did lose that ghost typing, but you know, that fake out just ends up going through the Ursaluna, making sure that it's taken out. Since it could cause major damage even if it will fall after this turn. So yeah, very well played on the side of the David.
David has revealed his last Pokemon now is Incineroar, which means this Golden Go is now going to be outspeeding everything that's remaining with Trick Room and up. Which means that Jeongso is now in a very strong position with this Golden Go. Like we said, you set up the nasty plot, you stall out the last turn of Trick Room, and now suddenly you've got this Intimidate pressure. You are giving King Gambit a boost here.
Exactly.
Which is a bit risky, but you do still have the option of just going for Fake Out and Make It Rain here. King Gambit can't protect against that. Amoonguss doesn't want to switch in on it. At +2, a Make It Rain will pick up the Incineroar from this range. So this is still relatively safe, and there's also the option of, because this Golden Go's leftovers, just protecting until it's outside of that Sucker Punch range again, even with the +1 boost.
Yeah, and it's very questionable about the Defiant being given priority, since, I mean, you did not have a choice at all, but because of that Defiant boost, it does give that King Gambit the offensive pressure that it wanted all this time, since it was always sitting there without access to protect and not having an offensively boosted item in the form of that Assault Vest. So now it basically has a free choice band for itself.
Yeah, but there is just so much offensive pressure coming out from this Golden Go that I don't know if that one attack boost is going to be enough for this King Gambit to turn the game around. We see there the Fake Out completely safe into the Assault Vest and Make It Rain doing such big damage into this King Gambit.
Man, that was so much.
It's a lot of damage, even through the Assault Vest. Now, the Incineroar can come back in. It can Fake Out the Golden Go here, but as we said, with all this leftovers recovery, it may still be able to get itself out of range of that Sucker Punch eventually, and even if it doesn't, there's still the Porygon 2 in the back, which is looking to Ice Beam this King Gambit.
Yeah, so things are not really looking too good on the side of David right now, considering that his backs are to the wall, literally, with this Incineroar and the King Gambit being his last Pokemon. And on the side of Lee, that Goldengo just showed us how, you know, I guess it was EV trained very well to throw out powerful Make It Rain, since it tore through that Assault Vest on that King Gambit. So things not looking too good on the side of David. You'd have to consider what you could do to address this in game 2. And I think the thing that made it difficult was that early Trick Room being going up, as well as that Terra Blast, which basically did nothing.
Well, we should be talking about Game 2 if Game 1's not quite over yet. It's tough for David in this situation, but calls like this can turn a game around. He gets the Fake Out correct on the Protect, and the Low Kick takes out the Incineroar in one hit, thanks to that Defiant boost. Now we see it coming back to bite Jeongso. The Porygon 2, though, is still going to be so difficult for David to get through, but maybe one or two calls going correctly, maybe a little bit of luck if he needs it here or there.
Yeah.
This could turn around. I think the bigger issue now, though, is there is so much pressure on this King Gambit here. The combination of Make It Rain and Ice Beam will be able to pick it up. And I don't think there's really a huge amount that Debbie can do to save the King Gambit. So now it might be a case of, can you get the Golden Go with a Sucker Punch? Can you knock off the P2 and maybe make something happen with Incineroar in the end game? But I just don't think it's going to be enough. Golden Go does go down to the Sucker Punch, though.
Yeah, and it's all a matter of, will the Porygon be able to take out one target here, which might be the King Gambit, since it did get the download boost. Oh, but David going for the parting shot in order to neutralize that. So, well played on his part. Let's see if the damage will
save the Gambit. King Gambit hangs on with 6 HP!
Oh my goodness, he literally just said it.
Gambit.
Yeah, so I'm literally eating my words as David hangs on with that King Gambit with a sliver of HP. So now it's all a matter of, can they take out this Porygon before his health reaches 0?
Is Porygon faster than the King Gambit? I don't think it matters now that the Sucker Punch goes off. Sucker Punch goes off, I don't think it matters. Incineroar is going to be able to pick up the Flare Blitz at the end of this next turn. And what a clutch survival.
What a clutch.
On 6 HP. such a smart passing shot as well from David. Because the options there, like the obvious play maybe is to try and take out the Golden Go, maybe try and get some damage down with a knockoff and remove the EV Light from this Porygon 2. But if you do that, the Incineroar I don't think will be able to win that endgame. And so instead he's going, okay, I'm going to have to gamble on this Porygon 2 not quite having enough in it to take out this King Gambit. And what a play that was. You were talking way too early about going to a game adaptation.
I didn't expect that King Gambit to be so bulky, to, you know, hang on with 6 HP up to the very end. So yeah, the King Gambit probably heard me, hey, it's not over until it's over. So yeah,
What did you say about me?
I disrespected King Gambit.
It's over
So,
when King
well
Gambit
played.
says it's over.
Yeah,
What a
it's only
great
over
endgame.
when King Gambit says it's over. That's the final line we have to remember by from that one game. But well played on the part on David, being able to turn that game around. And props to that King Gambit. Really, I mean, it's amazing when one Pokemon can grab a knockout, a clutch knockout, but it's another kind of spectacle when you see a Pokemon survive when
Yeah.
it shouldn't have survived.
So tight in the end game there. And it's interesting because it did just come down to that one call from David on the fake out into the Incineroar and the low kick, saying, okay, it's really obvious I'm going to fake out your Golden Go here. So I'm not going to fake out your Golden Go here, actually. I'm just going to take
Yeah.
out the other slot. And that's what gave him that avenue back in. And sometimes in a position like that, when you're kind of very back against the wall, as you said, sometimes your best out is just to try and make a big play, make a hard read.
Exactly.
Because if you make the obvious plays, your opponent is probably going to call you for it, and you're out of the game, right? But sometimes you just have to make those big dynamic reads, and that's how you can get back into a game from that kind of bad position. That was a very, very good example of that from David. So now the question for Jeongso is, do you adapt to that? Do you want to go with the same game plan of the hard trick room mode and say, I think the game plan was fine, but David made an excellent play at the end of that game, so if I can play around that next time, I'm in a good position? Or do you go, okay, well, David was playing well enough to get around that. Do I switch up the game plan and go for something different?
Yeah, that's very correct. And at the same time, I think Lee would have to consider that David is very much capable of making those risky plays, if only to try and grab themselves back into the game. So, well said, considering that whenever you're playing from behind, you can't make all those safe plays because your opponent is just going to try and maintain the gap. You have to make that big play in order to try and, you know, equalize things. So let's see how David manages it out this time. Will they be able to take the lead from the start or make another magical comeback?
Oh, that
in
more
order
big
to close
plays in
things
game
out.
2 for us.
Yeah. So I think our game 2 is ready. So yeah, without further ado, here we go as we see the Incineroar and the Porygon 2 being led on the side of Lee, and the fast Sneasler being coupled with this King Gambit, which eats the Intimidate and gains a Defiant boost from the very first turn.
Interesting. We saw the King Gambit lead both games. Jeongso in game 1 not leading the Incineroar into it. This time, I guess maybe thinking that David might switch his lead up, but instead David sticks to his guns. He knows it worked last time, and now he gets rewarded with this big Defiant boost. And this Porygon 2 is immediately under a lot of pressure from the Kowtow Cleave and the close combat from Sneasler. The Intimidate on Sneasler, obviously very helpful here to mitigate that damage a little bit, but the Sneasler can switch out of that Intimidate drop, and the King Gambit will still be on the field with this big Defiant boost.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, it's also a problem if you... I mean, at this point, this King Gambit doesn't care whether Trick Room is up or not, since Sucker Punch will just be thrown out there with that Defiant boost. So I think if you're on the side of Lee right now, you'll have to consider how to take out that King Gambit as soon as possible, since it's just gonna be dishing out damage in order to help things around for its teammates right here. As we see, it does go for the Terra Flying, probably not wanting to take a Flare Blitz from the start.
Instead, we just trade fake outs on turn 1.
Yeah, we just trade fake out, so nothing much happens there other than, you know, doing chip damage for both Pokemon, but it is slightly still in favor of that King Gambit because, you know, right now it still can't get hurt greatly from that Flare Blitz anymore, considering it lost its Steel typing and it has that Defiant boost. So that Porygon 2 doesn't seem to be looking safe here, especially since its choice of Terra typing does not grant it any immunity to close combat at all.
Yeah, we do see the close combat come out here. That's a lot of damage, even from a -1 Sneasler. And I think at +1, the Kowtow Cleave follow-up might be enough to pick up the Oregon 2. With the Poison Touch, it surely will be, but it's a case of does the Trick Room get up first? See a parting shot coming out from the Incineroar, dropping the attack on Sneasler yet again, down to -2. Is Sneasler really going to struggle? If this Trick Room can go up this turn, this is going to be a great position for Jeongso. It just comes down to if Porygon 2 can survive this. Can he flip the tables on the end of last game? Can Porygon 2 get the clutch survival on the King Gambit as opposed to the other way around? The Kowtow Cleave coming out, hits the Porygon 2, and it goes down. +1 Kowtow Cleave is enough, and that's a huge, huge knockout for David now.
So, well played on the side of David. That was everything that he wanted right there to stop Trick Room from going up, especially since there's no other Trick Room setter on the side of Jeongso. So right now, if you're on the side, if you're looking at things from David's perspective, you have the commanding position right here. You're not playing from behind like the last game. It's all a matter of, we just gotta keep the offensive pressure going, but at the same time, not getting counter hit too hard from something like that Ursaluna right here. But because the Ursaluna is yet to be burned, it's not gonna be dealing as much damage as it could possibly be doing. So it's a matter of did the Amoonguss and the Ursaluna go for the safe protect, thinking of this or not?
Yeah, it's a tough position now for Jeongso because not only is his one Trick Room piece down, the one Trick Room setter, but it looks like he committed his whole game plan to revolve around Trick Room, bringing all 4 of what you'd kind of think to be his Trick Room mode here with the Incineroar, the Amoonguss, and the Ursaluna, all very slow. And the Ursaluna already down to just a sliver of HP, and now instead of the safe protect for it to get its flame body active, instead the opposing team, David, has the safe protect now if it had protect, just to knock out the Ursaluna with its own flame orb. So Amoonguss now is in a tough position where it's almost forced to pollen puff the Ursaluna, but if it tries to do that, then Sneasler can just hit the Ursaluna for that last tick of damage. So this is now a very, very tough spot for David. For Jeongso. I think David has a pretty safe play of just trying to get a Dire Claw for the last tick of damage on the Ursaluna, and that pins that. And once Ursaluna goes down, just an Incineroar on Amoonguss, there's not really much offensive pressure there, and so David in a very commanding position if he can get that.
Yeah, and because that Amoonguss did terrestrialize into the fairy typing, even if it does Rage Powder away a Dire Claw, it's gonna get hurt for double the damage that it shouldn't have been taking. And this Ursaluna, we don't see it at all. Instead, we see the Ursaluna just eating that Dire Claw and going down. And possibly this Amoonguss throwing out a Spore onto the Sneasler. No, we see a Pollen Puff.
I think that's an interesting play from Jeongso, because in a position like that, it's one of those things similar to David's position in the last game. You have to, in some cases, either make a hard read or hope that your opponent makes a mistake. Because if David does go for the play he does there, which is the Dire Claw into the Ursaluna, then that Ursaluna is going to faint at the end of this turn regardless. Because, like you said, you can Rage Powder it away, but then you're taking a Dire Claw on your Amoonguss.
Exactly.
Or you can Protect, but then you go down to the Flame Body. The Flame Orb and the Burn Chip. So that play from David is 100% safe. So if you are Jeongso, you have to just hope that your opponent doesn't make that play. You hope that your opponent doesn't see the line that is guaranteed to win them the game. And that's, I think, what Jeongso was going for there. He was hoping that maybe he went for a Dire Claw, David went for a Dire Claw into the Amoonguss, in which case you can get a big attack off, Pollen Puff your Ursaluna back up, and that's maybe your only way back into this game.
Yeah, and, trying to squeeze this game out even further for that safe win that you did mention, the Amoonguss, which just terrestrialized into Fairy, is now susceptible to its own matching move, which is the Spore. So it's funny how the tables have turned. This little mushroom is now a target for Spore, as it now falls asleep. And yeah, that's the guaranteed turn of sleep going right out there, which essentially keeps this Incineroar possibly safe from a potential Spore, where they can just focus down the other Incineroar. Because it's a mirror match right now. The only difference is that one Amoonguss has a crown on its head.
And
we see the
David has 2 more Pokemon in the back as well, I think, is the biggest difference there.